Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another update on Ukraine. Today's date is Wednesday, the 12th of October. And yeah, there's a few things to talk about today, guys. We're probably just going to get multiple videos out. So let's get straight into it. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Check the links in the description. And let's just get straight into a map update, all right? So if we go to the north, West Luhansk, northwest Luhansk, we can see that since the 9th, a few days ago, like Sunday, Monday, there hasn't been an awful lot of progress. The only day that we saw major traction was from the 9th. In fact, it was from the 9th to the 10th, really. We saw a little bit of land gain. Well, I say a little bit, you know, I'm saying that modestly. There's quite a bit of land taken there. So why the slowdown? Well, if we look at it logically, guys, logically speaking, my experience from being in the military myself, this land here that they're taking, in order to keep on pushing forward through to these main areas, these main settlement areas, you can't just steamroll through these villages and continue to do so day by day. It's not the movies, okay? Now, a lot of guys who haven't served in the military might not understand that concept, and I'm not trying to be patronizing, okay? Even just to take a very small portion of land, if you're actively engaging in hand-to-hand combat, fighting through these villages and these settlements, all of these settlements here will be quite hard to take without certain provisions, okay? I.e., rest, recuperation, sleep, food, medical treatment, you know, and it all has to be adequate medical treatment and adequate rest. You can't just say, well, we'll get half an hour's worth of sleep here and then crack on into the next village. Yes, there is times in certain wars where this will happen. It certainly will happen like that in certain parts of this war. But if you want to strategically advance in a way that you're going to continue to take land effectively from the enemy, you need to have those provisions in place. So when they're moving through these settlements and these villages, yes, they might have a decent amount of soldiers on the ground to be able to push on through, but it doesn't matter. They still need the same provisions as we would in life, okay? After a hard day's work, you want some food, you want some rest, you want some sleep, you might want to tend to some of your injuries that you may have, okay? Just think about it like day-to-day normal life for you guys, and then just times it by 10. These guys are working really, really hard on the ground, fighting the enemy. They haven't got to just deal with the physicality of war. They've got to also deal with, you know, the emotional aspect of war as well. The act of killing is not a normal act for humans as much as people would like to say it is. All right, the fighting that's taking place in all of these towns and these little settlement areas here is going to have an emotional impact on the Ukrainian. It's going to have an emotional impact on the settlers who are moving back into the villages, okay, seeing the destruction of war. It's not going to be good for anyone's mentality. So these guys are working their asses off, pushing forward as we would like, but let's just take a step back and realize, actually, you know, in order to take this land, a lot of nasty things needs to happen. A lot of hardship needs to be partaken in, okay? So that's where I'm coming from. I'm trying to think about, you know, the mindset that I would have going into this, the soldier's mindset. Don't think that this land is you know, slowing down for any reason other than those reasons, all right? They need to get effective logistic lines in place. One, so they can hunker down, defend these positions. You know, you've got Yampil, Zarichny, Nevsky, all of these areas along this notional front line that we've got pushing through. The guys will be digging down, getting some rest. Reserve forces might be pushing on through, and I don't mean reserve forces as in territorial army. I mean the sections, the troops, the companies of men waiting in reserve to push on through whilst they defend and rest within certain areas here, okay? So it's very important to understand the concept why that's happening, troops. I think that gets missed an awful lot on these updates. We just talk about, you know, oh, they're going to be pushing through and they're going to take that village, and yeah, they should take that, or why haven't they taken this village yet? Well, them's the reasons, guys. We're not dealing with robots on the ground. We're actually dealing with real people right now in these areas, okay? Defending there, defending this, defending that, eating there, sleeping there, you know, preparing to take this settlement, you know, and they can't do that when they're absolutely worn out, when they've got horrendous injuries. They can't do that when they haven't had food for 2 or 3 days. They can't do that when they might not have the manpower. So these are all the reasons, all the contingencies that need to be in place for them to effectively push on through. So if we are seeing slowdown in these areas and they're gradually pushing through, that's a good sign to me. It tells me that the thought pattern is methodical, the orders from above are concise and clear, and they're actually respecting their troops on the ground. Okay, they're respecting the guys on the ground who's fighting here. They are feeding them correctly. They are preparing them for the next battle, and they're giving them what they need: time, rest, food, motivation, emotional support. All of this kind of thing is taking place as we speak. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to effectively push on through into these next areas. Now, if we look at the map without what the doodles that I've put on, we can see, if we zoom right up, that hasn't changed for a few days. Based on those reasons, probably, all right? The guys will be well fed. The guys will be getting their supply routes in. They need to get supplies and munitions and food and stores up to the front line every single time they move forward. So in order to do that, they need to, basically create a defendable position with troops on the ground there ready to restock and then scatter those supplies out to the front lines effectively. That takes time, troops. That's not going to happen overnight. These things could take a few days. It does tell me that the pace of the war could change slightly, though. If you look down here, if you look down this massive corridor, I'll just draw a line, you can see pretty much, as I draw a straight line there, you've got a lot of settlements running through there, okay? An awful lot of settlements. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, possibly a few more in that little in that line as well that we can't see. And I want to do something here in terms of that's a massive chunk of area, guys. All right, how long are we looking at here? That area stretches about 64 kilometers. You got a lot of settlements right there, guys. In order for them to take this next bit of land, there's an awful lot of settlements very, very close together. All of these areas close together. This is going to be really tough to fight, all right? It's not like these areas we've seen them just whisk past. There's been a lot of open land, open fields and stuff amidst and surrounding these areas that they've overtaken, and that will have been a little bit easier in favor of Ukraine. But defending, the Russians defending these areas that are very close together, that's a very strong front line there that they've got. So I feel that effectively, this is going to be a lot harder to take than the land we've just seen. So is Ukraine preparing for something a lot bigger, to fight off these settlements here? I think they're going to have to. I think that's why we're seeing a tiny bit of a lull in the battle, because these areas are probably a lot better defended than the areas that they have already fought against. And I also think that in order to take them, the guys need to be in the right frame of mind to be able to pursue these positions, because it's going to be a lot of potential war fighting, all right? You're not just going in, taking one town, moving on to the next. You have to take a lot of towns at the same time. You have to take a lot of settlements at the same time. So it's going to be coordinated. It's going to be busy. It's going to be a tough time to take this next bit. But post that, if they do manage to be successful within this area, I generally believe that they'll be able to push on through. And as we can see in this open land here, there's quite a bit of fields next to the right-hand side of these settlements. And feature-wise, the gradient does seem to change here. We go from open fields where there are now to a little bit more densely populated. And these settlements along this feature here look quite a lot more densely populated for the entire 64-kilometer stretch, which we've just mentioned there. You've got a few road systems going in and out. Yeah, this area will be quite tough to take, I think, personally. Once they take that, I think we're going to see a large shift again, like we've seen in the beginning of the Oskil River when they pushed on through. They took large sweeps of land once they took the right-hand side of the settlements there, because there's quite a lot of open land to the right-hand side of that. And then you've got a few main settlements to the right-hand side as well, And we're going to see a lot of open space here potentially being taken very, very quickly, hopefully by Ukraine. This area here, once they've taken this massive line of defended positions, you're looking at quite a prominent feature there as well to then fight again. The same process. But Ukraine is, fighting this war. there's nothing really changed with the way they're fighting this war. They're fighting it, quite similar. The tactics seem to remain the same because they're effective. Russia has yet to really find an effective strategy to counteract them. Instead, what we've seen is they start bombing sporadic targets, affecting civilian infrastructure, affecting the civilian populace, deep in Ukraine, the areas that shouldn't really matter too much. The two areas that should matter on their agenda, and the areas which I would have thought would have been heavily hit with these missiles, would have been that area in the east north and this area in the south west. So that hasn't really happened, troops, which tells me there's a clear lack of direction of what they actually want to do when they're prioritizing their tasks and their mission set. So that's what's going on in the north. Map study wise, let's have a look at the south. We knew that this was slowing down slightly. Let's look way back at the beginning of the week, the 8th. We can see that they're still at Dudcheny there, and they were, trying to push on down to My Love. These areas are heavily defended, more heavily defended from Russia, and I believe this is going to be a slow. This area here, sorry, let me get my right pen. These areas here are going to be a lot harder to take for Ukraine because we've had guys pushing through all the way from Kherson, to defend these positions, this Notionary front line here. Okay, guys, so I do see this area in particular going to be quite hard to take for Ukraine moving forward. But as long as they can push forward in little drips and drabs, bunker down, heavily defend the positions, establish new supply lines behind themselves, so they can defend the front line effectively, resupplying their men with manpower, with supplies, munitions, food, all of that good stuff. I do think we'll see a steady increase in Ukraine's presence as they move south. But I do think they need to probably take the coastline a little bit further. Really focus their efforts on the coastline, taking these main areas here, affecting Russians' progress, okay, moving down the side here. That's what I think they should be doing. But, these wars are not easy. It's easy to be a spectator and talk, about what should be done, what could be done. And it's, slow progress to say the least in the south for that reason alone. You've got a dense area in Dudcheny. That's going to be quite hard. You have got open field in and around these areas, but look at it this way. You've got these settlements here, which are apparently heavily defended Russia is heavily defending these areas, allegedly. So I'm not too sure. Maybe Ukraine needs to prioritize more manpower to this area, but word on the street has it that Russia is, although they're trying to defend these areas a lot better than they were in the east, these areas in particular are very sparsely populated with Russian manpower. That's word on the grapevine. I'm not too sure how it is now, whether or not they've increased those numbers on the ground. I think it was one guy per 60 meters of front line at one point, which is not good enough. If you look at the statistics of war, you need a lot more manpower. Certainly more than one guy per 60 meters of front line, especially when you're fighting the home team, so to speak. So a little bit of an update today, guys, on that. We're not going to read any articles or anything. I just wanted to get into the mindset of, the soldier on the ground a little bit more, because that does get missed. It's easy to just put arrows on a map and then say, yeah, they're going to take this and take that. Yeah, strategically speaking, we can all do that. But let's talk about the reasons behind those movements, why they may be slow, why they may be quick, because that's what I'm interested in. I can understand the mindset of the soldier on the ground. It's okay having a lot of dictation from the top, i.e. the high-ranking generals and stuff, to political leaders telling you what they need to do, X, Y, and Z, but it won't happen unless the will of the guy on the ground says it can happen. And you need to have a good, strong, fit fighting force, a well-rested fighting force, or should I say a reasonably rested fighting force. I know on the battleground you're not going to get as much sleep as you would like, but need to be rested and fed nonetheless, okay, guys? Wounds need to be attended to, emotional needs need to a degree, be attended to. Otherwise, you haven't got a fit fighting force to be able to push on through in the front lines. So I think we might start getting into the mindset of the individual on the ground a little bit more, and we can also get into the mindset of the individual on the opposite side in Russia, guys. But yeah, don't be fooled in thinking that the traction is lost or things have slowed down, you know, because it's not the case in war. You have drips and drabs of momentum, and the lack of momentum or the lull in the battle is always there for a reason, okay? Both sides actually have real men involved, okay? And there's no robots here, as a lot of people like to think we're that far advanced. We're not yet, all right? There's hundreds, there's thousands of men on the ground who need to sleep like me and you, need to eat like me and you, and that next town is just going to have to wait, okay? Even the guys defending those positions need to rest, all right? You can't be on lookout all of the time. So war in this scenario is definitely a game of chess, and the things that hinder it and slow it down is actually very, very basic human things, such as food, water, sleep. Simple as that, guys. But if you like today's video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to join the Patreon, the link is in the description. Join us on Rumble as well for alternate content. And I'll see you in the next video, troops. Thanks for stopping by. Much appreciated.